What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another tournament breakdown presented by Midway USA. These do not replace the series videos. You may have already seen the Bassmaster Classic video from BMP Fishing the Series come out, and then you're seeing this. So generally, I release these after the series video comes out. You get a taste of how the entire event unfolded on the water, off the water, and then these are meant to give the hardcore guys and gals kind of more of an in-depth look at the baits, the rods, the reels, like all the tackle, and kind of how I went breaking down, or how I went about breaking down the body of water. And this week we're talking about Grand Lake from the Classic. And I had a pretty simple approach. Going into Grand Lake, I had some history there. I've had really good success there in the past. I knew the general area of the lake that I typically fish, which is like mid-section of the lake. Generally, the watercolor sets up really well there. You kind of have a mixture of stain and clean water, where the water runs down from the Neosho, which is dirty. The elk is clean. It kind of mixes in that mid-lake and then filters out and gets clean toward the lower end of the lake. Generally, I like that section because of that water clarity. The fish seem to live a little bit shallower, which then allows me to also throw shallow crankbaits, which is one of my favorite ways to catch them. And going into the Classic, I knew that was going to play some for me. I just didn't know where it was going to happen or which baits I was going to throw. And I really landed on two key baits. Had a couple of really good days of practice where I felt like I could potentially catch 18 to 21 pounds each day, depending on what bit. Now, that didn't necessarily happen in the tournament. I had a really good day 2 where I weighed a little over 17 pounds. But day 1, I didn't get those big bites. And I don't know if it was the weather changes or what was happening. But it seemed like that bite was a lot less stable than what I felt like it was after practice. So let's just kind of dive into it. The biggest key for me was finding those transition areas. And on Grand Lake, it can be a mixture of things, right? It can be a laydown, a dock, a rock transition, where you have a bottom composition that changes. But this week, it seemed like anywhere I had kind of that pea gravel to chunk rock, that was like the main deal. And if it had close access to deep water, even better. So using my Lake Master charts, using side imaging, using Mega 360, and dialing in these places, right? Idling around, marking a lot of places, coming back and fishing them later. And what I found is that I was able to catch a lot of those fish in kind of a, say, 2 to 4 foot zone. And what I've learned is I do this technique that I call floating a crankbait, essentially, or hovering a crankbait. And what it is where that crankbait is just barely ticking the bottom, right? So if this is, say, a rock, the crankbait comes, I want that bait to just like hover and hit, and I want it to come over and back down the backside. And you do that by using a slightly deeper crankbait than what you would normally throw in those depths. So, right, I said like 2 to 4 foot. For me, that was one of the key baits, Megabass Z2. That was a huge key for me, throwing it in the wild craw pattern. And then also, if I ran up the elk or down the lake a little further and got into some of the cleaner water, then I threw that matte brown Phantom craw color. I guess it's not Phantom, but the matte brown 2, that color was deadly. And what I realized with this Z2 is that it has a different type of plastic in the bill, and it would deflect different, and I could actually feel the bait hitting better, which I'd never really noticed with a crankbait, but I could definitely tell a difference in that and how it would hit and deflect and how well I could feel it. And what I noticed is that when I threw this bait versus all the other different types of crankbaits I'd tried, 9 times out of 10, this bait would be gone, right? That's all you would see, about that much, maybe the bill. Where some of the other crankbaits maybe have one hook on the back or something, and you know, you get the bite, but there was a noticeable difference in how much better they ate this bait. And so I thought I really had something special. Still think that I did have something special. I just didn't get those right bites. Maybe I wasn't in the right areas or my timing was off. But I felt like there was some key to this bait in that. And I'm a firm believer in that just because of the way that those fish were eaten. So started off, you know, a little bit dirtier water, throwing that wild craw, and then I would transition if I got in that clean water, throwing that matte brown where it just kind of blended in, looked a little bit more natural. And it seemed like when I made that color change in the different watercolors, you know, instantly that bite was there. And then day one, we kind of had a lot of weather rolling, right? It was cloudy, rainy, and to me, it seemed like my fish, it kind of put them in a negative mood. And I don't know why that was, but I ended up throwing the Megabass Sonic side in that matte green color. And again, just super natural. The difference is that when you look at the Sonic side, it's very thin profiled, right? Very thin, flat-sided bait. So you don't get a ton of action out of it. It's much more subtle. And it seemed like day one, that's what they wanted. I fished a couple places with the Z2, didn't get a bite, spun around, threw the Sonic side, and was able to pick up a couple fish. Not sure exactly what caused that, right? If it was weather change or pressure, what it was. But there was a noticeable change. And then you notice those larger hooks that I put on there, right? Those are the BKK Spear 71 SS's. And on the Sonic side, I was swapping out, putting number 4s. And on the Z2, I think it's stuck in my knee. These hooks are sticky sharp. I was swapping to number 6s on the Z2. So you can see this match up perfect. You've got a short shank, a pretty wide gap, and they've got a slight in-turn. So when you're cranking those shallow rocks, right, especially a bait that's meant to dive a little deeper, your hooks stay sharp longer, which is a super big key in the spring when those fish are sometimes nipping at the bait or, you know, just really not getting it very well. So big key on that, cranking everything on 12-pound Seaguar Tatsu. All my crankbait rods were the Alpha Angler Rebound. 100% glass, best crankbait rod on the market. That glass is super special and just has a different taper and weight to it than any other glass, right? An S glass versus just your kind of standard E glass that a lot of places use. That makes a huge difference. And the reels, Daiwa Zillion SV TW 7.1 to 1. That is like the ticket for me. And after 2 days of the tournament, when things didn't go as planned, right? I think I was sitting in the top 12 after day 2, after having a really good day. The problem is that I was still way back from Justin Hamner, and I needed to have a big day, like a 26, 27-pound day. An Edwin Evers 2016 Bassmaster Classic kind of day on Grand. I thought, okay, I'm going to go swing big. I'm going to bust out the big baits, and I pulled out the mag draft, 8-inch mag draft, and ran up one of the rivers. And I got up there, and the very first place I stopped on, you know, it took a little while, but I throw it up past this little rock point, and I'm slow winding it back, and it just slack lines me right under the surface. And I set the hook, and it's an absolute giant, like 6-7 pounder, just monster. And there's one big boulder that sits on this little point, this little outcropping, and my line goes stink, and it breaks me off right across that rock, just saws me right off on the muscles on that rock. I thought, gosh, dang it. But it was early, and that bite gave me a lot of confidence. Even though I lost it, it broke me off. I thought, they'll bite it. So I tied another one on, went a little bit further, catch one that's almost 4 pounds, and, it's just got the thing choked. I'm thinking, okay, this could happen. Something special could happen. And then it kind of just slowed off, and I did catch some fish. I mean, I caught plenty of fish throwing an 8-inch mag draft and a 7-inch glide bait. The only problem was that I caught 13 pounds. That was the problem. So incredible event, spent most of that third day chucking that big mag draft around. Incredible bait to catch big ones on in the spring. And my favorite rod to throw it on is the Alpha Angler Wide Glide 7.9 heavy action rod. That thing just does, it is perfect. The taper of this rod, it's a mag heavy fast, and it's got a little bit more bend than just those heavy meat stick rods, and it seems to hold that treble hook in there a lot better. And then my favorite reel to throw it on is actually the Daiwa Zillion HD. It fits in my hand really well. I throw it on 7.3 to 1, holds plenty of line. Typically, I like to throw mine on 20-pound Tatsu, so that's what I was doing there that week. But an amazing event. It's the Bassmaster Classic. If you want to have a shot to win, sometimes you got to swing and gamble on the last day. It's what we did. Was not able to pull out a win. Had high expectations going into Grand Lake, but amazing to be there. Fish the way that I love to fish, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Appreciate you guys following along, watching, subscribing, commenting. If you guys want to know any more in-depth info, just leave me a comment. I read through most of all the comments, so try to answer your questions there. But again, appreciate you guys. You guys can check out most of this tackle on midwayusa.com. We'll catch you on the next one.